Thank you all for coming. And today I'm going to give an overview of Prout, the social philosophy of Ananda Marga. And I will highlight its spiritual aspects and the fact that it's a kind of holistic approach to social change. So one of the things that is interesting me is that most of my life I taught about Prout as an economic theory, but it is also based on spirituality, and spirituality is a really important part of Prout. So as social philosophy, the goal of the social philosophy should be so that all people become happy and fulfill their highest potentiality. To create a good society, the starting point is you have to know what are people really looking for. You know, if you make a product, you have to know what people want. So knowingly or unknowingly, everyone is searching for self-realization, for absolute happiness. So the really unique feature of Prout is that it's trying to design a society that supports people's spiritual needs as well as their economic needs. And the young people that I meet today are looking for something like that. So if we only talk about the economic side of Prout, it will not satisfy what people are really looking for. They want a society and an economy that has a human touch and a spiritual touch. Of course, it has to be practical too in the economic sphere and in the environmental and the social sphere. But if the spiritual sphere is missing, it cannot satisfy what people are really looking for. So my goal today is to give an overview of Prout and to show how it fulfills the economic needs, the social needs, the environmental needs, and the spiritual needs that we are looking for. So now I'm going to share my screen. All right. So it's creating the world we want. We have to start with really thinking about what kind of world do we want. We cannot just approach a society with, oh, we have to solve this problem or that problem. We have to think, what do we really want? What's our vision? To achieve that requires many things. We need a change of consciousness. We need an education system that educates people towards the kind of world that we want. We need social change movements because there will always be resistance. We need ethical leadership, inspiring examples. And finally, people need to see some model, some picture of what it is that we are aiming for. So there are plenty of inspiring examples around the world that we can look at, but that's what our master units should be. They should be examples of a different way of living. For consciousness change, that's why we teach meditation and yoga and yama and niyama. So Prout is the last one. It's the clear, you mean the Prout theory. What I'm going to talk about today is the model, right? But a model can't change society by itself. All the other elements are also necessary. Okay. So system change, not climate change. And this states the problem. that the system is causing climate change. And if you want to solve this problem, you need to change the whole system. You need to change the whole approach. As long as we still have the capitalist system, we cannot solve our problems. So, as I said, we have to look at a holistic vision of society, one that is good for people, one that can make profit, one that has a purpose, and one that is good for the planet. So it has to have these four elements: an economic, ecological, social, and instead of worldview, you can think spiritual. So basically, Prout is a set of design principles. You won't find every detailed answer to every problem there. But if you understand the principles, you can create the answers yourself. There are 5 basic principles. There should be limits on physical accumulation of wealth. There should be rational distribution of that wealth. The way we create and the way we utilize the wealth should be done in a way that it is best and most efficiently utilized. There should be proper adjustment between the physical, mental, and spiritual elements. It means it should be a balanced society. And all the rules should be adaptable to changes that happen in time and place and person, because the world never stays the same. Now, if you look at these 5 fundamental principles, for at least 3 of them clearly mention the word spiritual. So the second one says there should be maximum use and rational distribution of all physical, mental, and spiritual potentialities of the universe. So right at the very beginning, Prout acknowledges that our world is physical, mental, and spiritual, and we have to make best use of all those elements. The third principle says there should be maximum use of physical, mental, and spiritual potential of people, individual people, and society, social people collectively as a whole. So right at the very beginning, Prout says that people are physical, mental, and spiritual beings, and we have to make best use of our physical capacities, our mental capacities, and our spiritual capacities. And number 4 says there should be proper adjustment amongst these physical, mental, and spiritual utilizations. So, in terms of the world, in terms of ourselves as people, there needs to be prama, there needs to be balance. We are physical, mental, and spiritual, and there needs to be a balance between all these 3. That's a completely different vision of the world than capitalism.
Yes.
And it's a much clearer vision of the world than any other theory which is out there today. This harmonious balance between the physical, mental, and the spiritual. So here's a beautiful quote from Baba. In the present world, human beings face such tremendous difficulties in maintaining their worldly adjustment, means economic, and that they cannot afford to give any time for their subjective approach, their spiritual life. This is the greatest tragedy of the day. That is why I would like to advise you to build a healthy human society as early as possible, so that each and every human being gets enough scope and time for spiritual progress. So millions and millions of human beings cannot even get the chance to think about their spirituality because they're barely able to survive on the economic level. Even in wealthy countries like Japan, people spend so much time and are so busy at work that they barely get time to think about their spiritual progress. Capitalism wants to make profit for a few wealthy individuals, but the purpose of Prout is to use technology and to cooperate in such a way that everybody has enough free time and everybody has their basic needs met so that they have time to be relaxed, not to have stress and worry, and to be able to do cultural, educational, and spiritual activities. The world is full of wealth, but it's not properly utilized, and it's not properly distributed. And that's why, and there isn't a clear goal that this is what we want to create. Therefore, we have this problem. So Baba explains clearly that Prout can't exist by itself. It depends. It is part of a package that goes together with neo-humanism and spiritual practices. So the quote from Baba is, there must be a close connection and relationship between Prout, neo-humanism, and spiritual practice. The balance between these three will elevate the structure of human beings to its highest capacity. We cannot neglect Prout, neo-humanism, or spiritual practice. This balance is to be maintained for all. So you can't really understand Prout without spiritual practice. And you can't implement Prout without spiritual practice. And you can't implement Prout without neo-humanism either. And if you want to create a spiritual world or a neo-humanistic world, you also need Prout. The three go together. So I saw on the internet this interesting idea that if you want a result, that result will depend on what actions you do. But the actions that you do will depend upon your beliefs. And the beliefs that you hold will be determined or will be created by your experiences. So I think, our goal and our vision of human society is we want to create a one united universal family where animals, plants, and human beings are able to develop themselves physically, mentally, and spiritually. The actions and the changes which will help us create that world, we will find in Prout. Right, so you, me, and all the Proutists, we have to make something happen. We have to do action. So Prout is about action. And those changes are based on how we see the world, which is through the eyes of neo-humanism. We see the world as one family. And we feel that the world is one family because we are having the experience of that when we do meditation. So Prout gives a lot of importance to spiritual leadership. And here's a little quote from Baba where he talks about spiritual leadership and why it's important if you have the goal of creating a universal society. The collective body of those who are engaged in the effort to bridge the gap between the first expression of morality and establishment in universal humanism is called society. So those people who are trying to remove the gap or trying to travel the gap between the first expression of morality and universal humanism, those people who move along with this effort is called society. So basically it's saying that if our goal is to establish universal humanism, then, and that begins with morality, then your leaders have to be moral, because it begins with morality. This journey towards universal humanism, it begins with morality. So if the leaders are not moral people, you can't get anywhere. And because society, the goal of society is to establish universalism, then the leaders have to be universalists. Right. So the philosophy of life of the leaders must be morality is the base, sadhana is the means or the method, spiritual practice is the method, and life divine is the goal. Okay, so that's the spiritual aspect of Prout. We need a spiritual goal. We need a balance between the physical, mental, and spiritual. And we need spiritual leadership. Or we need leaders who have that balance between the physical, mental, and the spiritual. Okay, so now we're going to look at what Prout calls rational distribution. How should we distribute the wealth of the world so that everybody has enough time and security and peace of mind that they can pursue education, culture, and spirituality, self-realization. This is shows how the wealth is presently distributed under capitalism. And this chart comes from an organization, a Swiss banking organization called Credit Suisse. 1% of the population own 46% of the wealth. The next 11% of the population own 39% of the wealth. So together, the top 12% own 46 plus 39% of the wealth. Awesome. The next 33% own 14%, and the majority of people have to share the remaining 1%. So, thank you, capitalism. Now, how do we change that? So, this is what Prout suggests. We want to make the gap smaller, the inequality. You want to reduce the inequality. Okay, so to close the gap, you have to push from below and you have to push from above. To push from below, Prout says that the basic principle is you have to guarantee the basic requirements of life to everybody. And you have to close it from the top by creating limits on individual accumulation. It should be illegal to accumulate billions when other people are starving to death. If you have 10 pieces of pizza and 10 people who want to eat, and one person takes 9 pieces, basically you should punish that person. You should prevent, it's something that we agree on with each other, It's just obviously socially irresponsible to take 9 pieces. It's a kind of mental sickness. But Prout doesn't say there should be no gap. That would also be unfair. So you have to be fair to the collective, but you also have to be fair to the individual. If someone works hard, they should be able to get a reward for that. But the reward should not be so huge that it causes suffering to others. Okay. So that's basically how we distribute wealth in Prout. Guaranteed basic needs and limits on maximum accumulation. And one more thing here. Let me go quickly to another slide, which I forgot to put in there. Okay, we go back here. All right, so there needs to be a gap. But the principle in Prout is that first, meet everybody's basic requirements. Then see how much is left over after you feed everybody and give them, their basic needs. And then use that leftover money or leftover wealth to reward the hardworking individuals who are giving important help to the society. Okay, so what are the minimum needs? They are food, clothes, shelter, education, and medical care. And how do we guarantee them? We don't give everybody those things. We guarantee the jobs and the purchasing capacity. So everybody has a job that pays enough money that they can buy those things. I don't know about Japan, but in Europe, there are many young people who can't find a job. They are very educated, they are very talented, but there are no jobs. So in a Prout society, the government must legally guarantee jobs and must legally guarantee that the income, the salary from those jobs is enough to pay for food, clothes, shelter, education, and medical care. And okay, then the second one, you know already that there are limits on accumulation of wealth. And the third idea of this system is that the individual incentives, that encourage people to work, they be taken from the surplus, which is left over after you meet the basic requirements of everyone. And hard work is not enough to decide who gets, who should be paid extra. Because let's say somebody is a thief, dorobol, and they work very hard. Right, so, but we shouldn't pay them because they are hurting society, not helping society. So there are many leaders or people who are making a lot of money, but actually they are stealing from society. They're not really helping society. And think that what I'm trying to say is that there are many people in society today, maybe they look nice and they wear a suit, but are they actually helping society or are they harming society? Okay, so that is how wealth is distributed. But if you want to distribute wealth, first you have to create it. So now I'm going to talk about how wealth is created, or what is the best way, the most efficient way for benefiting everyone to create wealth. So capitalism says that private ownership and private enterprise, private business is the best way to produce maximum amount of wealth. But if we look back at this, we will see that that's definitely not true. Private enterprise definitely produces a huge amount of wealth for a very few people. What we need is a system that creates a lot of wealth for everybody. As far as this goal is concerned, capitalism is a terrible failure. Communism is also a failure. So we need something that is neither capitalism nor communism, something in between. Okay, I will come back to this one a little bit later. Oh no, I'll start with this one. Okay, so we're going to look at two levels, the international level and the national level. So one of the key principles in Prout, as far as production of wealth is concerned, is that the most efficient form of production is decentralized production. If you concentrate production in a few countries, that will not be efficient. For example, China,
例えば、
America,
アメリカ、
Japan,
日本、
Germany. It makes those individual countries very wealthy, but it causes suffering for other countries. Similarly, if you allow super big private companies like Apple and Google and things like that, which centralize the majority of production in a few big companies, few big private companies, they do very well, but everybody else suffers. So what Prout says on the national level, for example, within Japan, there should be small-scale private enterprises are okay, but they should be for small businesses like a restaurant or a hair salon or a small shop or something like that. So if the government tries to control these things, they cannot manage them efficiently. The small private businesses can understand and respond to the local situation. But when you get bigger than that, if it is private ownership, then you get too much power and wealth going to one individual, and that has a suffocating effect on the rest of society. So Prout says that medium-sized industries should be run by worker-owned and managed co-ops. But once they get very big, or if the industry is something like maybe defense or water or energy, things which are really, really critical and important for the well-being of society, these should not be in private hands, even a cooperative. They should be run as public enterprise by the local governments. So we see, when we look at how we distribute wealth and how we create wealth, the goal of Prout is to prevent concentration of wealth in private hands. This is the problem. Concentration of wealth in a few people's hands, right? So this is what Prout sees as the main economic problem. And everything in Prout tries to prevent concentration of wealth in a few people's hands. And that comes from our viewpoint of neo-humanism. We see the whole universe as our family, right? So we must make sure that all our family members have food and clothing and they can survive and get their needs. Capitalism is based on a different worldview, that the world is a jungle and the strongest animal survives. Kill everybody else. Let my country be the strongest. Let my company be the strongest and defeat everybody else. This is called social Darwinism. Okay, so here's an example of what it would look like. So the big key industries are the red or the orange. And the cooperatives, the medium scale, are the green. And the small private enterprises are the orange or yellow or whatever it is. I'm colorblind, sorry. So let's look at Japan. Let's say there is some very poor area in Tohoku. The government will establish a key industry there. In order to develop the region, the capitalists will never put it there. They'll put it in Tokyo or Osaka or somewhere. So the purpose of the key industries is not to make a profit. It is to develop the area. Okay, once you have a key industry there, then naturally, let's say it's a car assembly, right? Then many smaller, medium-sized cooperatives, some make doors, some make engines, some make electronics, and different cooperatives make different parts to give to the main factory. And then around these medium-scale part factories, then you have smaller private businesses, even private homes, and this happens in Japan. They may send out some work to housewives living in these different areas who it's difficult for them to leave their young children, right? So they can do work at home, or restaurants and other small things that serve the needs of the workers and the bigger cooperative. So in a very natural way, the whole area gets developed.
自然なこととして、そのエリアが発展していきます。
And the people don't have to go to Tokyo to find a job. The countryside comes back to life. The big cities get smaller. They don't need to be so big. There's also nature around. People don't have to travel huge distances to work. And so you can have a nice balance between agriculture and nature and industry. So small eco-towns. So decentralize. But unless the government has control of key industries and can deliberately put them in places where they are needed, this cannot happen and is not happening. It is the same situation around the world. Okay, small-scale business private, medium-scale business cooperative, large-scale industries, local governments, no large private corporations, no large central government corporations. In other words, it should be local governments, not central governments, doing this. Okay, so what we looked at just now is about how to achieve decentralization of production of wealth on the local, national level. But it's also important, Prout gives some interesting suggestions about how to achieve decentralization on the international level. So if we look at human history, there has always been empires of one strong country or a few strong countries dominating the world and having great success for themselves, but causing other countries to suffer. So Prout has the idea of, to solve this problem of competition and imperialism and colonialism and conquest and empire, we should aim to have self-reliant bioregions. Every region of the world has some kind of wealth, so use the local wealth to meet the needs of the local people. For a long time, in the early stage, America did very well just using its own wealth to meet the needs of its own people. In Europe, we had city-states. In Japan, you had the what do you call it? The prefectures and the daimyo and most of these places were self-sufficient. The daimyo were leaders of a region in Japan. The same was in India. Now, we don't want to go back to that system. We have technology. We can cooperate with other regions and we can have trade. But each region should be 80% independent. In Scandinavia, we have berries. In Spain, we have bananas. So we can trade. The problem is when one country wants to dominate the whole world. And the problem is when the borders are created for political reasons and they don't make geographic or economic or cultural sense. So here's just an example. It's not a Prout example, but it's an example of dividing Europe into sensible areas which have some kind of unity of economy, of geography, and culture. So these are natural bioregions. And it could be, just think about it everywhere. Is all of Japan one natural region, or do you have many different bioregions within Japan? So instead of a few companies in Tokyo dominating the whole country, each area can have its own economy. So Prout, Baba designed this system for India. All of these different color regions are independent bioregions. They have their own language, they have their own culture, they have their own geographic special qualities, they have their own economic specific problems. Each area should have control of its own economy. They can trade with the other regions, but they should be 80% independent. If they are 80% independent, then there will be lots of different types of jobs and industries in each area, and each region will become individually strong. Now, what Baba says is that when each region becomes individually strong, they may choose to connect to other regions and become a federation, and they can leave by choice if they want to. So instead of one region dominating and conquering the others, either by business or by military force, the regions, independent, strong, healthy regions, choose to come together so they can solve their problems in a better way. Baba started Prout movements for local independence and cultural and economic independence in each of these regions of India. And that is why the government put him in jail, because the present unity of India is a few rich families in a few parts of the country who dominate the rest of the country. Okay, so that is the ideas for how wealth should be created. So first we looked at how wealth should be distributed. Now we look at how wealth should be created. So on the national level, we have 3-tier industries: small, medium, and large.
富み
And
がど
on
ん
the
どん
international level, we have this idea of, where are we going the wrong way? We have this idea of self-reliant bioregions. That's how the wealth should be created, the best way, the most efficient way to utilize the resources. Okay?
Yes.
So if wealth is produced in an efficient way for everybody and it is divided fairly, then people can meet their spiritual needs because they have their basic needs already taken care of. Also, it helps to solve the social problems, because if people are more equal, they feel more like brothers and sisters. Where there's a cooperative style of production, people are working together and helping each other like a team.
やって
It
います。
is economic democracy in everyday life. And if all the regions of the world are strong independently, then countries can feel more trust with each other. And for this, you need a good world government, like an expanded and more powerful United Nations. It means this system, if we follow this system of distribution of wealth and of production of wealth, it is a better use of people and resources. Everybody has a job. Every job pays well. And that means that people have enough money to buy a house and to buy everything they need for the house, to pay for food and services. And that means that the economy will also be healthy. In Japan, there are so many economic problems in the past because there are many things to buy, but the people don't have the money to buy it. So the economy collapses. Means there is too much supply and not enough demand, because all the money is in the pockets of a very few people. So through properly distributing the wealth and through producing the wealth through cooperatives in a decentralized way, you put money in the pockets of the people, and that is what makes the economy succeed. Then if you put money in the pockets of the people, they can buy things, and that's what makes the economy succeed. No more recessions. Then we said that, we also need to be sustainable. We need to take care of the environment. And the environment, people say that if you have big cities, concentrated industry, and a few countries controlling then the environment will be collapsing. So much pollution because Japan and China are sending, and Germany and all these big countries are sending stuff all over the world. So much waste. But if each country produces its own needs for its own people, the goods, the items, the goods do not have to travel all around the world 5 times. You meet the local needs from the local resources, and there is no waste for transport and packaging and administration and things like that. And people don't have to go to Tokyo for a job, and you have small eco-towns. It's much better for the environment. Okay, so you meet all of the needs. You solve the social problems. You make sure that people can fulfill their potential. They have a purpose. It takes care of the planet, and it solves the economic problems. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it useful, and I hope it will give you some inspiration to study Prout more
Maybe
and
Dada
to
is
share about Prout to other people. If you have some Prout books in Japanese, then think about who are some people, maybe teachers at the universities, maybe teachers in high school, maybe student groups, or, people that you can share it with. We sent a copy of After Capitalism to the President of Ireland, and he invited Dada Maheshwarananda to Ireland to meet him, and he met him, and he said, "You should publish this book everywhere." We sent a copy of this book to a radio host of an environmental radio program. At first, he ignored it, but after a few days, his son bought him a copy of the same book, and he said, "Dad, you should read this." And so the guy thought something is happening, and so he called us. So our job is to make sure that people know about Prout. So get some good Prout books in Japanese and send them to key people, as many as you can.
Dada,
Okay.
can I ask one
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
オンカーが質問があります。はい、どうぞ。
So Dada, basically, I really enjoyed your talk. The slides were very, very nice, actually. It was very easy to understand. So, yeah, so my name is Onkar. I'm currently in Japan, Tokyo. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I came here like 10 years before for my PhD. Yeah,
Right.
since then I'm working here in Japan. So, yeah.
Okay.
My question is, like, when we talk about Prout to the capitalist people, they say, like, if we provide like basic needs to everyone and employment to everyone, the people become lazy. They say the people become lazy and they will not work and they will not get motivated
Yes,
to
and Prout agrees with that. That's why we don't provide the basic needs in the form of, like unemployment benefits or social handouts. Rather, we guarantee employment with a good salary, right? So people have to work. So that's not a problem in Prout. We guarantee that people have a job and the means to earn an income. We don't give them the income for doing nothing. Yeah, I will show you that point again. So, guaranteed minimum requirements through guaranteed employment and guaranteed purchasing capacity, not by giving handouts. That's how we're different from the Scandinavian system, for example. Maybe I'd ask you to keep one more thing in your mind, and that's that keep in mind the idea of balance, that we are aiming at a society that balances physical, mental, and spiritual. And that is, I think, something that especially young people today are increasingly looking for. They don't want just an economic world. They want a world that has heart, that has feeling, that has depth, that speaks to their inner spiritual needs. And that's why something like Prout is so important today, because it's the only philosophy that really clearly talks about balancing the physical, mental, and the spiritual, and it does it in a very practical way. And also, to succeed in Prout, to promote Prout, we need more young activists. We need young people who can understand the spiritual idea behind Prout. So don't waste your time talking to people who have no feeling for spirituality. They cannot understand Prout and they cannot teach it to others. You need to focus on the people who can be the future Prout leaders, and they have to be spiritual people. So don't try to tell Prout to everybody. Try to focus on those people who can be the future Proutists. Mainly focus on young people who are interested in spirituality and who are at the same time interested in changing the world. This is where we should focus now. All right, 皆さん、気をつけてください。どうもありがとう。よろしくお願いします。
ありがとうござい
おや
ました。
すみなさい。
ナマスカー。
Dada, ありがとうございました。Thank you so much.
Namaskar.
Thank you, Dada. Thank you, Dada. Namaskar.